All right, guys, we have Nate with us here today. As you guys can see, he has quite heavy grown out hair, right? We could agree. I'm looking to do a bit of a transformation, especially on the sides and the back, but I think the focus is gonna be, when you look at it from the profile from the sides, it's gonna have the most change. The flow on top, when you notice, I brush his hair back and there's really good flow. And I noticed in the bangs, he has a quite wispy curl pattern that just sits nicely and frames his face out. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So before I start, what I notice about Nate's hair is that his bangs sit really well, but the parietal ridge, the sides here, the top, and even the back of his haircut is just way too heavy.
Yep.
And I think the biggest part of why that's happening is because of choice of length. And that's my complete answer for this entire haircut. So choice of length, and not only in the back, but on the sides and on top needs to change just a bit. And that little bit will give this haircut a huge change. So my vision right now is I want to fade out the sides. I want to do a skin fade, but I need to remember he has heavy hair and it's thick, right? Go ahead and feel it.
Yeah, super thick.
Super thick, super heavy. And what I notice is his hair is straight or wavy or curly?
Wavy.
Okay, so wavy. We notice his hair is wavy, but I notice his hair almost tends to be curly towards the end. So I need to take my choice of length a little bit longer than I normally would, because once I cut this short, curls are just gonna sit super short and stick out almost. So because I want the curls to lay, I wanna take the choice of length just a tad bit longer. And then on the back, I definitely wanna give him more shape. And I notice when I feel his head shape out, immediately the first thing I notice is that his crown is a little bit flat. Okay, so his crown is flat and his occipital bone doesn't dip in too much. So in this case, I need to build up a little bit of weight. And I think the perfect fade that would sit with building up weight in the crown would be something like a low fade or a drop fade. So I don't want to give him a high fade. I don't want to give him anything tight. Okay, I want to leave some bulk and volume. On the sides, we got to feel his head shape out, right? So first thing I do is I feel the crown or the corners. This is the parietal ridge, right? Go ahead and feel that. What do we notice about his parietal ridge, Dylan?
It's not super. It's definitely got obviously round, but it's like kind of flat through here.
What does kind of flat through here mean to you though?
On his round, it's just like not protruding out at all. It's just almost going in more than anything.
You know what I notice? I notice that usually the dip of the apex is wider on most people's heads. His is a little bit more narrow. That means the buildup of weight can't be too wide. So we need to keep the buildup of weight with the triangular shape slightly tighter. So in the back, what do we need to do? Build weight because his hair crown's flat, right? On the sides, we still need to build weight, but it has to be minimal. Can't be too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we're gonna go ahead and section off his hair into a square section, but we're gonna keep the square section slightly more narrow today. Sectioning wise, keep it simple because this haircut is not a crazy haircut, right? This haircut is gonna be a very simple look that I feel like you're probably gonna do every day inside your shop. So when you're trying to do an everyday haircut inside your shop, the last thing you wanna do is take super intricate sections. So simple, find the corner of his hairline to the roundness of the head in the back. Corner of his hairline to the roundness of the head in the back, and draw a straight line down. We're gonna create a section straight from that apex, right where it begins to dip in the crown. You see that?
Yep.
Okay, draw a section straight and we isolate the back. Here's what gets a little bit tricky because every time we try to match the right side with the left side, this is where people tend to have the most troubled area. So what you're gonna do now is we're gonna come from the front and we're gonna identify the corner first. Okay, and from here we're gonna go back to the front. We're keeping it a little bit more narrow because why?
To complement his head shape, build a little bit more weight.
Perfect, because his head shape is slightly narrow. So we're cutting off what his natural head shape looks like. Everything comes into the palm. I showed you this yesterday, right? Once you have the tension in your palms, that's when you're able to just twist it out. But before that, you want to just make sure that you're ensuring that tension. Because everything that you do, right, with the haircut like this, two things. The biggest thing is choice of length, and the only ways to really mimic small areas of choice of length is through tension. Are you gonna cut it at natural fall, or are you gonna cut it with very tight tension, right? So once you have the sections laid out, and once you have the techniques laid out, those two things are the small things that you need to mimic to really control those details. You get what I'm saying? Yep. When I'm doing these sections, right, the last thing I wanna do is have natural tension. Why? Because this is just an area where I'm organizing the haircut. I see a lot of people making sections where it's like, I'm trying to create natural sections, not much tension. The only reason you would ever do that is if you're doing a super long haircut. Section has been created. Okay, we got a box section going from the roundness of the heads into the corner. Simple. The first section that we're gonna take is gonna be on the sides.
And that's where we're gonna establish our first choice of length for everything.
Exactly. So first choice of length is gonna go here. And watch closely, Dylan. I'm gonna bring this down and I'm gonna go with a diagonal guide. Why did I choose to go with a diagonal guide instead of a horizontal guide?
That's a good question because I would have jumped in and done a horizontal guide to set my first one.
Okay, now can I tell you why that's incorrect? Because when I brush his hair back, what do I notice?
It's bouncing. It's like
It's
not-
jumpy.
Yeah.
So if I were to comb his hair back jumpy and section it horizontally, I would just be making jumpy sections over and over again. So I need to work with his natural texture. Because when I go diagonal like this, it just lays perfectly, right? I'm just gonna create a diagonal section then. Why change something that isn't broken, right? Okay, so boom, I go here. Now, I gotta imagine, this is gonna be a what? Skin fade. So this is gonna stay tight to the head. Tight to the head. Okay, knuckles are touching the side of the head. This front part is slightly over directed, and this left part is staying tucked and tighter to the head.
So the back side of your knuckles all the way to his head. And how are you establishing when you pull this out? You just, is that something?
So the front of my finger is gonna stay over directed, so I'm gonna pull out, and this is gonna stay tight. This is a diagonal line that I'm creating into a square line.
To a square line. Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yep, okay.
Boom. That's my incision. Okay, and now I just check my guide. Before I move on, I just wanna check my guide. Do I like that? Do I not like that? I like that. So we move on. Next guide through. Second guide through. You know me, I don't like to complicate graduation, okay? If you've taken a class with me, you know that I like to simplify this process as easy as possible. Over direct back to previous every time. Boom. Check your guide. Boom, you see our guide. See that guide? Start a new one. Because we're moving into what? The back. And we're still staying tight here. Okay? Creating a square cutting line. Third guide through. Still staying diagonal. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm gonna create this diagonal slightly more curvy.
Yep.
And why is that? Why am I going from a straight diagonal to slightly curvy?
Does it have to do with like the natural of his, like the texture of his hair?
Bingo. So it's because I want to create each section to his natural hair texture. I don't want to change anything, right? The last thing I want to do is have his hairline be jumpy after. So every time I create a section, I'm studying how his hair is naturally reacting to that. So I'm playing more based off situation rather than the fact that I need to do this.
Like real systematic.
Yeah, my system is already set in place. Now it's for me to really make decisions that are gonna make small details matter. So here, we're gonna go ahead and place in our guide. Okay, nothing changes though, right? The cutting line stays the same. Back to previous, square. Boom. Nice, right? Okay, one more. So boom, one more time. Slightly curved, because why? That's how his natural roots grow, right? Why am I gonna change that? Grab that. Okay, there's the guide. I stay knuckles tight to the head here still. Okay, boom. I twist the chair and I create a guide down. Okay? And as I get to the bottom, I'm just staying slightly more vertical now, okay? Now, the guide up until this point is finished. Now this is where I really need to start using my brain. This is gonna be a drop fade here, right? Which means what?
You have to have weight up here.
Exactly, I have to wait. I promised him that I'm gonna keep weighting his crown after, right? Up until this point was his sides.
Yeah.
So we're transitioning to the crown. So what am I gonna do here? I'm gonna create the same guide going down. I'm gonna go nice and diagonal, straight down. We grab our guide, and I'm gonna over direct this back to previous. Now watch what happens here. I'm gonna create one more guide and I'm gonna over direct this back to that first guide. So now I'm over directing by 2. Whenever I start transitioning into the crown area, just to leave the length a little bit longer, I'm gonna over direct it 2 sections. Okay, so you see how I'm cutting less? And as I finish that last section off, I'm gonna over direct it all the way back to previous. So ever since I started that first guide in the crown, I'm over directing everything back to that first one. So the sides, optimal, back, heavier.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so this comes back all the way to the first guide. As you can see, there's less and less hair to cut. I'm moving with my feet. Yeah, I'm moving with my feet. I'm not going like this, right? I'm moving with my feet. Okay. Beautiful weight, see that? Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Guide number 1, staying diagonal, goes in. Bend comb for maximum tension. Peel everything back behind it. Clip comes in. Same thing here. Diagonal line, turns, square.
And now it's opposite, right? Just the tips of your fingers are pressed to the head as opposed to the knuckles.
Right, so this diagonal line turns square. We're gonna go knuckles tight here, and it's gonna come out a little bit more. So here. Okay, so this is gonna get over directed back to previous. There's the guide, see that? Third guide, straight through. This is like the easiest part. This is like flow state at this point. Like, I'm not even thinking at this point. You know what I mean? I could do this while doing a whole conversation with 10 people. So once you reach this corner, is when you gotta start being like, okay, it's time to get creative here. Okay, boom, check that guide. Same thing here, finish that off. And then still finish this off. Remember what I said? We're gonna finish this off at a diagonal line. Yep, more vertical. So after I create this side transition, now it's going into the crown, right? Now what we gotta do?
Direct it all the way back to our first guy. Well, this one will just match this one, but the one after that will come back to our first, right?
Bingo. Okay. So second guide in the crown comes in. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and over direct this back all the way to previous. Now watch what happens here. As I get to this area, there's gonna be another guide, and you see it from this other side.
Oh, from the last work, yeah.
Yep. All you need to do now is connect these two guides in. So connect this disconnection in right here. You see that? You see how there's major disconnection? And you can see the guide from the other side too.
Yeah.
So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab that guide. Now it's simple. Everything gets over directed to what?
All the way back to the first guy.
Exactly. And this is how you keep weight in the crown while keeping optimal amount of weight in the parietal ridge. We're finished. And you see here, perfect amount of weight is built, and it's perfectly even.
It's not too much either, like it's not bulky.
Right. It's not bulky at all, but it has the correct shape that we need.
It's like the right weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it has the correct shape that we need, but it's not too bulky. Let's move on to the top. Okay, so the top is actually gonna be the trickiest part of this haircut because choice of length is gonna be huge for this type of texture. You cut it too short, it's gonna look ugly. You leave it too long, it's gonna look too heavy. So what is the optimal amount of choice of length for this haircut? Well, what do we notice visually in the beginning? He had pretty good flow to come in with, right? So it's not gonna be a big trim. We know that immediately. If we're gonna take out weight, it needs to be afterwards, maybe dry. I'm gonna go ahead and put a guide straight through the middle, okay? And from this guide, I'm gonna pick that up and I'm gonna look for my disconnection, okay? You notice there's not a heavy disconnection here. You notice that?
Yeah. The longest,
It's just a triangular line.
Yeah.
So from the longest, shortest piece on top, which is right here, I'm just gonna give it like a 1-inch trim. So this connection is now gonna be a little bit softer.
So, and when leaving this longer, like in matching the longest, shortest length, that's gonna allow it to lay better here, right?
So the reason why we wanna cut it at the longest, shortest length in the back is because when it comes up and it lays over, it's gonna lay beautifully.
Yeah, a lot of times, dude, I'll pick it up and I'll take like the shortest length. So then it just like erases that and then there's like nothing there.
There's no crown apex transition anymore.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, sick.
Okay, so boom, pick that up. And I'm just gonna be chopping that up. And then from here, and I'm just gonna follow that all the way through till I hit the front. Now for this front part here, Dylan, I'm just gonna leave it square, okay? So what we're gonna do is move into a square line on top.
Yeah.
Second guide comes in, boom. And this guide is now gonna get over directed back to previous for a square silhouette in the front. So this side is gonna get, yep, exactly. Okay, and this is like the most popular shape, right? Everyone wants that square shape nowadays. And it's just like, it's really easy to style, but it's also really easy to wear. So that's like the concept that you gotta understand is that, you know, when you're doing a square shape, this is what's gonna feel even to them. When they say like, can you cut the top even? This is what's actually gonna feel even. So same thing, one more guide through. So 2 sections at a time. And this is gonna get pushed over. Okay, back to previous. See that line?
Yep.
Okay. And notice, because we're building up a corner here, there's gonna be less and less hair to cut. You notice that?
Yep.
Okay, and then everything on the sides here, we're just gonna push over. And anything that hasn't been touched, there's barely anything, right? Okay, same thing on this side. Literally the same thing. I'm gonna stand on the opposite side, and this time we're gonna pull instead of push. Okay, so watch this over direction very carefully. Instead of pushing, I'm pulling now.
Yeah.
Pulling back to one section. And I want you to see where my fingers are at. Back to previous, right? Boom, another section down. And from here, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, okay? So I'm pulling back to previous every single time. Boom, see the guide? And I feel like once you establish that first guideline, it's like, you're not even thinking at this point. No, yeah, it's like, it's so simple, right? And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read the nose. Read the nose. I'm just gonna split it. So now this is what we've created, and I'm able to see what type of disconnection we have. Optimal amount of disconnection, would you agree?
Perfect, yeah.
It's perfect. Do you wanna connect it in more?
No, it's gonna make too
I don't either. I think that's perfect right there. So that's optimal. When you check your shape after you create the top and the sides, and the disconnection looks nice like this, why would you go in and start blending everything in? It makes no sense. You follow the rules, you have steps, and then once it looks good enough, you leave it.
Yeah.
Now, second thing I wanna mention is the top of his hair, I wanna style kinda natural today. I don't wanna do like a crazy slick back or like anything too harsh on the hair, right? But also, one thing I wanna do is I wanna make sure that I have a clean fade. And so I need to dry the sides out. I need to. So before even adding product in or anything, I'm gonna add zero pre-styler to this, and I'm just gonna dry the sides up and leave the top wet. Okay, so I'm literally just gonna dry the sides into the back, and I'm gonna leave the top as is. Three guard. When knuckles are tight to the head, three guard is gonna be the optimal guard to use. And I'm gonna go open because we are leaving the shape a little wider, right? So you see that weight line? Open. Straight into that weight line. Why would you need clipper over comb? Okay. We scoop out. That's the perfect transition. Every time I do this, I ask myself, clipper over comb is unnecessary. Because why? Because clipper over comb also wouldn't create this flow.
Right. It would just square it off.
It would square it off. This comes in. And I'm keeping my guide open because I don't want to create that harsh line here either. Okay, push everything down. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the same thing. Boom. Boom. Transitioning beautifully into the sides. And you see how it's perfect for his head shape too?
Yeah.
The way we've created that weight.
Yep.
Okay, it's not too much, it's not too little. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this side as well. Now I want a low fade, right? So when I do my low fades, I go ahead and descend until my 1.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and descend. So 2 guard goes in. 2 guard closed. Open that up. 2 guard closed, open that up. I'm just working into that 3. So I'm descending until I can hit my 1.5. 2 closed right underneath that. And then as I get to my 3, I open it up. Now watch what I do. Grab my 1.5 and I do the same thing. So a little bit underneath that. I'm gonna start my 1.5 and open that up. I'm seeing where this density wants to naturally sit. And it's already fading out for me pretty well. So 1.5 goes in. And I'm just lever playing. Now I'm just creating density because like I also got to imagine this is going to be a low fade, right? And that's why I want to descend a little bit because keeping that weight is crucial for a look like this. Okay. Now once I have that rough guide set, this is still very rough, I'm going to go ahead and create a soft guideline. Now what does a soft guideline mean, right? When I say soft guideline, I mean a guideline that doesn't really have a harsh line in it. I almost want it to have a natural line in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my guideline with my clipper closed. Okay. And as I go in, I'm making sure I flick out a little bit to make sure that guideline is soft. Okay, and as I go down, I'm gonna dip. Okay, and I dip into a U shape. And this is what's gonna give me that drop fade, low fade effect. What if I were to give a high fade to Nate? It wouldn't match his head shape, right? So I gotta give something that's gonna match his natural. So that's the guide that I'm creating. Very low and natural. After this guide is set in, I go straight into my half guard. So my half guard comes in. With my half guard, I'm just gonna flick. Closed. Half guard closed and I flick. As soon as I touch that guide, I flick out. And I transition into my one guard close now, okay? One guard close comes in, and as soon as I touch, I flick. The weight is already set in perfectly. I just need to remove this guide. I'm using corners for this area because it's a little bit hard to get around, but as I get to a flatter area, I'm just gonna use the whole blade. Right when I get there, I open that up and I corner it in, okay? And right when I get to that point, I'm gonna open up, no guard, and I'm gonna go halfway and clear up that bottom line. Close it up right underneath, halfway. And I'm really just doing lever play now. And this is a very rough draft of this fade. So like, I want to finish the fade within like 2 minutes per side and then just detail it after. Because what's the point of spending all that time when you need to do everything else, right? Fading, I'm trying to take 20 minutes max. The reason why, I mean, everyone has their own fading method, but the reason why I really truly believe in the system that I have is because I feel like a lot of the systems that I've learned in the past is like, you can do a clean skin fade in 10 minutes with it, but it has to be high. But I feel like this system really locks down a way where you can do any fade, like low fade, drop faded, you know what I mean? Like you choose. Basically, the system is really simple of, I just set in the foundation and then I detail after. I'm just gonna hit his C cups before I move on. Now, we're gonna work on this other side here. Literally the same thing, okay? Half guard, one guard, that's all you need. Okay, so half guard goes on, flick. You see how it's like just so effortless, honest. You know, you see what I'm getting at? It's like, it's just soft. One guard closed, same thing. And why is this gonna fade in perfectly? Because the line above this is a 1.5. It's already going right into it. So the descending method is sick because you get to create your bulk with your 2 and your 1.5. You kind of just get to choose where the fade's gonna sit with your 0. And I'm using my corners to really remove small guidelines that I see. Okay, 1.5, just detail, just a tad. Okay, so pretty much right, left, it's done. I just need a detail after. So we've done the fade in like 10 minutes. Just because it's the back, you don't go higher, right? This is a drop fade for a reason. We stay low with the fade and we keep that bulk. One guard goes on, right above that. I'm just detailing at this point. Haircut's done, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here's what gets a little bit tricky. And I feel like this is where a lot of barbers waste time. I mean, I'm gonna keep it a buck, bro. Like a lot of barbers waste too much time on fading. Okay, so this bottom line, this is where everyone wastes time. This bottom line, you literally flick out. And when I flick this out, I have to be mindful of where that 0 is actually set in. It's not just to here, right? It's lower than that. Because every guard we flicked. So even on this bottom line, I'm flicking. See that? I always start with the top. So start with the top of the C cup and then I draw that. So now, before I go ahead and detail and everything, I'm just gonna go ahead and soften his hair up just a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit of weight out before I go ahead and style his hair. Let me just say one thing. I don't wanna remove too much weight in the sense of adding texture as well. So I don't wanna do this, and I don't wanna do, I wanna remove weight a little bit below the texture line. So I wanna remove a little bit more weight underneath. The internal weight has to go. So I'm just gonna pick this up, and I'm gonna grab this hair. I'm gonna stay a little bit lower, and I'm just gonna slice through. And I'm not going crazy with it either. I'm just doing a little bit. I don't need too much. It's already sitting nice. Same thing here. Pull it up. And I'm slicing through. And I'm not going too many strokes either. I'm just doing like maybe like 4 per section. As I close, I pinch out, but I'm not closing it. I stop right before it closes, and then I pinch out. I stay slightly open and I come in, and as I gradually come up.
You just hit, okay.
Okay. Boom. Now the haircut at this point is finished. I'm just gonna go ahead and detail and style. We're gonna get to that, yeah? I'm literally, when I detail, I only do corners. And I'm not even doing a lot. Honestly, the only thing that I feel like he needs now is just style up top. Fade is good, right? Shape is good, but I feel like style-wise, we're lacking so much. That's like the part of the haircut that I always leave for last, is that I don't want this haircut to look finished until I style it. I want it to look like it's like 50% there. Detailing unstyled is such a crucial part because you'll really be able to be real with the haircut. Why? Once you have everything styled nicely, the fade might not even need to be perfect for you to be like, yo, this is a good haircut. But once it's not styled on top, you have to make everything look perfect. That way, when you style it, it looks flawless. You get what I'm saying? So I pull the skin, right when I pull the skin. So now the haircut's fully finished, right? I have nothing else that I need to do except for get some of these baby hairs off. I wanna go for a shinier finish with this haircut, right? So what kind of paste do you think I need? Gel, right? Perfect, so I'm gonna go ahead. Because I want a shinier finish in his haircut to finish off, I'm gonna go ahead and use gel pomade. Okay, that much. And because I almost want it to sit like a wet look, I want this to have a shinier finish, but I also want it to be slightly more of a wet look. I'm gonna dilute it with a little bit of water. So gel with water. Okay, run that through. And you're just gonna get this like real like watery substance that's like, it almost feels like glue. And I'm gonna start in the front, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna lift slowly. I'm just gonna go slow, okay? And I'm just gonna scrunch. I'm just gonna see what it is that I'm creating. And it's just gonna be simple. There's not much complicated styling to it. I'm scrunching and I'm just running my hands through this haircut. And I want the front to sit like a middle part, right? So when I style the front, I'm making sure the bangs come down. I'm making sure that the bangs come down, and I'm making sure that this connection doesn't look way too disconnected either. Okay, and I'm making sure the sides have flow, but have flare as well. That right there is just like perfect, sitting perfectly, right? And I want this to be a haircut where Nate could be like, yo, I could rock this every day. I want this to look very natural. Someone that has an active lifestyle, you know? You don't want to give someone a hairstyle that has a very active lifestyle, something that's where you need to style it for 10 minutes every day, right? Something that's easy, right? Something easy but looks very stylish. I think the key to doing good hairstyles as well is understanding that everyone's gonna have a different curl pattern, right? Even a straight haircut, like Asian hair, they have some type of curl pattern. You just gotta study that. Okay, perfect. Finished product, what do we think?
You're crazy. I think it complements his head very well. I think
Yeah.
everything just complements him, man. So
I think what's unique about this haircut is that he came in with a very good foundation, but we made the foundation even better by really bringing shape to the back and bringing shape to the sides. You know, this haircut is called a middle part drop fade, but I think overall, beyond the name of that haircut, we just gave Nate something that's very suitable to him and something that he can just wear every day confidently, right? So I'm really happy with how this came out. We'll give you guys the after shots now.